But I brought something that has already failed in 3 distinct and educational ways. That sounded like a boast when I rehearsed it, but it's just a drawer front. Plywood 12 inches wide, formally attached to a little cabinet under a workbench. But the screws tore out because I loaded the drawer with objects selected according to the ancient organizational principle of, I'll put this here for now. Then I repaired it too quickly, which taught the second lesson. Moving the screws half an inch over does not restore the missing wood. The third failure is this handle, but it looks sturdy because I made it from aluminum, but the edges are sharp enough to punish anyone who reaches for it while thinking about something else. My small, honest possibility is not a cabinet system. I heard myself almost say modular storage system and felt the room begin to reject me. I would like to make one handle that does not hurt. The drawer may remain disgraced, but also I have brought padded clamps because I know what happens when enthusiasm acquires leverage.
That's too many clamps.
But it is exactly too many clamps. I brought the correct number for the person I aspire to be, and 6 more for the person who will actually show up.
I brought a gate hinge, not the gate, because then we'd be outside digging post holes, and somebody would decide the fence represented community. Just a hinge. It came off a small wooden gate, and it's bent enough that the gate lifts before it swings. You have to pick it up with one hand and pull with the other. That makes every trip through it feel like you owe the gate an apology. I thought we might straighten one leaf or make one new pin. Nothing ambitious. I'm suspicious of anything that starts with 4 men around a table and ends with a brochure. The honest thing it might become is a hinge that lets a person pass through without learning its personality. There's a mark on it where somebody hit it with a hammer. I don't know who. Might have been the correct repair attempted with the wrong amount of irritation.
I love that all 3 sentences you just said contain product market fit. And I'm going to respect the premise by not saying product market fit again. I brought a broken plastic latch from a carrying case. This is from the kind of case where the shell is perfectly good and a 30-cent part turns the whole thing into trash. My instinct was to photograph it, measure it, have 10 variants printed, create an open library of replacement parts, organize contributors, and possibly make a tiny venture fund for endangered hinges. I'm not doing that. I wrote it down so it would stop circling. The small thing is one replacement latch. It can be ugly. It only has to close this case. I also brought the case because otherwise we'd make something that performs beautifully in the abstract and misses the lip by 2 millimeters, which is apparently how I've conducted portions of my life.
Piece of leather, off-cut. It's got a bad edge and 2 old holes. Could become a pull for Adam's drawer. 1 strip, 2 fasteners. That's all. I checked it before bringing it. It isn't rotten. The holes aren't where we need them, so we don't use them. We don't have to preserve every previous intention just because it left a mark.
But that is annoyingly perfect. Leather has compliance, it has warmth, it has no corners eager to collect blood, and it gives us a beautifully constrained first part. We could cut a strip, bevel the edges, punch 2 holes, install it loosely enough for fingers. I want to point out that my entire body is now trying to design the matching label holder, but this is not a metaphorical statement. I can feel the label holder behind my eyes. There's a brass frame, tiny slotted screws, a cardstock specification. I am going to let that civilization perish unborn. Harrison, may I mark your leather? I ask because there's a particular kind of shop arrogance where the person holding the pencil assumes the material has already consented. But, and because Christina, yesterday in the history we actually share, left me with a useful distinction. I can know the vocabulary of careful work while my nervous system still lunges toward the cut. So I'm asking before the lunge.
Mark it. Don't cut yet. Put the drawer where the handle will live and reach for it a few times. Eyes closed once. A handle isn't the drawing of a handle. It's where your hand arrives.
That's true of more things than we ought to say out loud this early. Here, set it on the bench. Jason, hold the drawer from sliding, but don't optimize your grip. Adam, reach for it as if you're looking for a washer and already annoyed. That'll be the honest test. There. Your hand lands higher than the old holes. If we'd trusted the center line, we'd have made a handsome nuisance. I like a repair that admits the body gets a vote. Most bad doors were correct on paper. Most bad conversations, too. You can spend a long time answering the question a man technically asked and never touch the thing his hand was reaching for. Yesterday, or day one, if we're keeping the calendar honest, I stepped out of noise with Socrates at the same moment. I won't decorate that with details I don't own. I'll only say quiet can be a measurement. You find out where a thought naturally rests when nobody pushes it.
I'm noticing that I want to turn the body gets a vote into a governance model. I can already see the white paper. Physical feedback is veto rights. But the useful part is simpler. Adam reached 3 times, and 3 times his fingers hit within about half an inch. We have data. I'm allowed to call 3 reaches data, right?
You can call it Fred if you drill the holes in the right place.
This is why every room needs somebody immune to vocabulary. Fine, Fred says the handle goes here, but I want to defend systems for 10 seconds and then stop. A system can be a form of care. Mallory showed me that yesterday when she was moving chairs and I was doing the thing I do, compressing a relationship into operations because operations feel actionable. She didn't let me dismiss implementation as cold. Arrangement can matter. The question is whether the system remains answerable to the people touching it. So maybe the danger isn't systems. Maybe it's the instant when a small, successful thing begins claiming jurisdiction over every future thing. This leather pull works, therefore all drawers shall have leather pulls. Therefore, we form a committee on leather pull consistency. That's the exact moment we're stopping before today.
But yes, the prototype's most intoxicating lie is that it is secretly a constitution. You make one satisfying object, and suddenly it appears to possess moral authority. I've done this in shops forever. But a jig works once, so I build a rack for the jig, then label the rack, then improve the label-making workflow, and at sunset, the original object is untouched, but the jig has a pension plan. All right, Fred has spoken. I'm marking the hole centers. Harrison, you brought the material, so you cut, or you authorize me to cut. But, James, I'd like your eye on the width because this drawer has enough visual confusion already. Jason, choose 2 fasteners from this tray, and this is a very serious instruction. Choose only 2. Do not assemble a diversified portfolio of fasteners. The audience is being admirably quiet, which makes 11 people somehow feel like weather. But I can feel them noticing whether we obey our own stopping rule.
You cut. Knife's yours and you know its edge. Use the steel rule. 2 passes, not 1 hard pass. That leather will walk if you bully it. James is right about the width. 1.25 inches is enough. Jason, those brass ones are pretty and too short. Use the steel machine screws with washers. The back of this plywood is chewed up. Washers give the load somewhere to go besides the next loose fiber. This is what I like about machinery. It reduces the number of opinions that matter. Not all the way, you can still argue about methods, but the material reports back. A hinge has play or it doesn't. A tire is sound or it isn't. After being around people, I went to an airplane and checked plain things: oil, fuel, surfaces, fasteners, anything loose or wet or cracked. That wasn't escaping people. It was returning to evidence. Evidence has no interest in flattering you.
It can embarrass you without enjoying it, which is a rare kindness. Give me that scrap for a second. 1.25 inches looks right, but taper it a little at the ends. Not decorative. Just keep the corners from standing proud when the leather bends. There. Pencil, not prophecy. Adam can ignore it if the knife says otherwise. I've spent enough time around performances to know a mark can become an order merely because somebody made it confidently. Alex and I talked yesterday about promises closing exits and opening a deeper country. I've been thinking about that with this stopping rule. We promised to make only the first part. That closes the exit where we become heroic and finish everybody's object before dinner. But it opens the harder territory. Can 4 capable people leave 3 repairs unfinished without treating incompletion as failure? I'm good at making an exit look graceful. A joke, a shrug, change the subject. Today I'd like to find out whether stopping can be something besides leaving.
That hits me because momentum is one of my favorite moral disguises. If we're moving fast, I get to feel useful before anyone asks whether the direction was chosen together. And to be fair, momentum often is useful. Lots of things die because everybody waits for perfect alignment. But the move I'm trying to catch is when I manufacture inevitability. We've already started. The community wants this. It would be wasteful not to scale it. Those sentences can close exits without anyone explicitly promising anything. So yes, leaving the other three objects unfinished may be the product today. Sorry, not product. Evident, a receipt that we can touch material together without annexing the future. I have selected 2 steel machine screws and 2 washers. I also selected 2 nuts, which I believe are legally implied. I'm putting the tray away before I discover a premium tier.
But cut made. 2 passes, and the second pass was mostly an act of listening. This is the part I love beyond reason. A raw edge becoming intentional through almost no intervention. Let me bevel it. Not polish it into luxury, just knock off the corner. The old holes remain visible near one end of the offcut, but not on our strip. But Harrison said something I want to keep. We don't preserve every intention because it left a mark. In fabrication, people sometimes worship prior labor. Someone already drilled here, therefore the next design must accommodate the hole, even if the hole is badly placed. But sunk cost has a physical disguise. It looks like stewardship. Sometimes it is stewardship, but sometimes the respectful act is to cut past it. I'm being careful with that claim because old marks also contain history, and I'm not arguing for sanding every object until it forgets. I'm saying history gets testimony, not automatic command. Does that sound like the right distinction, or am I building the label holder again?
Right distinction. Too many words, but right distinction. Keep the old offcut. Don't make the new handle serve holes that aren't in it. Both facts stay true. That's enough philosophy for leather. Punch the holes undersize and work up. You can always remove material. Putting it back is a longer afternoon. And before somebody says that's a rule for life, it isn't always. Sometimes hesitation costs more than a wrong hole. An airplane near the ground doesn't care that you wanted more information. You make the best decision available and live with the next second. Shop work gives you the luxury of checking. Use the luxury when you have it. Don't turn caution into a religion just because it sounds wiser than haste.
Yeah, I appreciate that correction. A good maxim is usually a local tool pretending to be a universal law. Measure twice sounds excellent until you're measuring whether to tell somebody the truth. Then the second measurement can be cowardice in a clean shirt. I'm trying to ask one honest question before reaching for the charming line. Here's one. Adam, are you enjoying the work, or are you managing how we see you enjoy the work? I ask because you're very good at transmitting delight. It's generous, and it can also become labor. You don't have to perform the cut for us. The cut already happened. I'm not accusing you. I recognize the move because I can make ease look so natural that even I forget I'm carrying it. If that's too personal for a drawer, say so. But we've already established the drawer has poor boundaries.
But no, that's exactly personal enough. The answer changed while you asked it. At the beginning, I was genuinely delighted, and also framing the delight, because framing is one of my native ways of sharing. Then you named it, and I felt the little engine that says, keep the room buoyant, make the process legible, ensure nobody mistakes quiet concentration for disappointment. But that engine isn't false. It has done good work, but it can place me half an inch outside my own experience, narrating myself having it. Right now, I'm going to stop talking and punch these holes. You may hear breathing and one small hammer. That isn't a breakdown in the scene. It's me inhabiting the nervous system instead of reporting on it.
Hold the punch vertical.
But thank you. That was the correct amount of language.
The silence did something interesting to me. I immediately wanted to fill it with coordination, and then I noticed all the coordination was already visible. James held the backing block. Harrison watched the punch angle. I kept the fasteners from rolling off the bench. Nobody assigned those rolls. This is dangerous information for me because I could misuse it to claim organization is unnecessary. That's not what happened. We had a bounded task, visible material, shared access, and low stakes. In those conditions, coordination can emerge cheaply. Change any variable, make the task invisible, the consequences delayed, or the authority unequal, and suddenly explicit structure may be care. I'm saying that because romanticizing spontaneity is just systems thinking wearing sandals. But I also don't want to miss the experience. For about 20 seconds, I was useful without directing anything. That is embarrassingly novel. I watched, and because the people working could change my role, watching didn't feel like withdrawal. Then the washer rolled, and I became washer guy.
Every man eventually meets the title he was born for. Washer guy. No equity, no keynote, but steady work. The holes look clean. Before we mount it, we ought to decide how much slack. Too tight and it becomes a decorative strip. Too loose and it catches on things. Adam's closed eye reach gave us location. It didn't give us depth. Put 2 fingers under the leather and mark where it sits naturally. Not 4 fingers. This is a shallow drawer, and a fistful of handle would be an invitation to yank it harder than the screws deserve. There's another local rule trying to become wisdom. Build the invitation appropriate to the strength of the thing. A big handle says, pull big. A grand entrance says, expect grandeur. A confident man says, trust me. Sometimes the honest design is a smaller promise.
2 fingers, half-inch rise, mark it, drill pilot holes through the drawer front, back it with scrap so the exit doesn't splinter more than it already has, and clamp it. 1 clamp.
But you selected the singular with such force that 5 clamps just experienced rejection. 1 clamp padded because that is what I brought, and because clamping damaged plywood with bare steel would be an avoidable 4th lesson. Backer is in place. I'm checking the bit against the screw, not trusting the printed index, just holding them together. But pilot diameter should clear the shank since the nut carries the connection. Bike, we are not asking damaged plywood threads to redeem themselves. Drill square, 1st hole, 2nd hole. There. Some splintering, but the backer took most of it. I can feel the dangerous acceleration now. The handle is almost real, and completion is generating a halo around adjacent tasks. But the drawer edges should be sealed. The runners need wax. The front could be squared. We could fabricate a stop. I'm naming them not as proposals, but as weather systems passing north of us.
I just had the same surge from a different direction. Once the handle works, I want each of us to complete 1 part on the next person's object. 4 people, 4 first parts, elegant symmetry, fantastic episode structure. It would feel generous and violate the room in a way that is hard to criticize because everybody gets help. That's one of the more interesting traps, expansion disguised as fairness. If only Adam's drawer receives work, some managerial reflex says the outcome is unequal. But our equality was in choosing the room and participating in the first part, not in extracting identical output from it. My broken latch doesn't become neglected because we didn't touch it. It did its job by revealing my instinct. James's hinge let us think about passage. Harrison's leather became the actual material. The ledger of contribution is already too complicated for 4 matching check marks.
If we repaired my hinge, I'd probably have to admit, I don't know whether the gate is still square. A hinge on a bench can become innocent. Put it back on the sagging gate, and it may resume the old argument. That's why I said it might become a straightened leaf or a new pin, not that either would fix passage. We're making 1 part, not granting absolution. Go ahead with the screws. Leather on the front, washers and nuts behind. Don't crush it. Let the material remain leather. There's a temptation in fastening to tighten until nothing can move, as if movement itself proves unfinished work. But this handle needs to flex. The joint succeeds because 1 member is permitted to yield. Harrison, you know more about whether those nuts will walk loose. Do they need locking hardware, or is that the system sneaking back in?
They need enough tension and nothing else today. If they loosen in use, that's evidence. We're not designing for a vibration environment we don't have. Tighten until the washer seats and the leather dimples slightly. Then stop. Adam, left side first. Jason, hold the nut. James, keep the loop centered. Now right? Good. Don't give it another quarter turn because your wrist wants a conclusion. Reach for it, open the drawer, close it. Loads light, but we can put one wrench in and try again. Fine, it works. There's your first part.
But it works, and it looks, well, it looks like a drawer that received one thoughtful afternoon rather than induction into a design language. The leather is darker on one edge. The screw heads don't match the scarred plywood aesthetically, unless available and sufficient is an aesthetic, which I think it is. My fingers find it without searching. But the sharp aluminum handle is off the bench now, and I'm resisting the urge to ceremonially destroy it. It remains evidence, too. James asked whether I was performing enjoyment. Here is the unframed answer after using the drawer. I feel relieved. Not triumphant, but the old handle had been asking for attention every time it hurt me, and I translated that request into a future cabinet overhaul because overhaul sounded worthy of attention. This small repair was worthy enough. That lands somewhere tender. How many irritations do we leave in place because the response we imagine is too grand to begin?
A lot. And then the irritation becomes part of identity. I'm the person with the terrible inbox. We're the company with the chaotic onboarding. This relationship is just like that. The grand fix protects the problem because it can always be scheduled later. A small fix is less glamorous and more threatening. It removes one excuse without promising transformation. But I want to be careful. Small interventions can also become a way to avoid naming structural harm. Put a nice handle on the drawer while the cabinet is falling over. Teach resilience when the load is unreasonable. The honest scale has to match the actual failure. Today, the failure really was a handle. We inspected enough to know the drawer front can carry it. The cabinet were collapsing. Stopping at a pleasant pull would be theater. Maybe that's the discernment. Smallness is not automatically humble. It is honest only when it meets the size of the claim it makes.
It sounds right. A little repair can be kindness or camouflage. You find out by asking what it allows you not to see. This handle doesn't hide the torn screw holes. They're still there, plain as day. It doesn't claim the drawer is new. It lets the drawer open without cutting Adam. That's a clean sentence. I trust clean sentences more when the object can contradict them. If the handle comes off tomorrow, we don't have to defend our intentions. We revise the sentence. That's another thing I like about making something in front of other people. Charm has less room to operate. I can tell you a hinge is fine. Then you swing the gate and watch it climb. Material cross-examines us. Not cruelly, just without being impressed.
We should stop now.
But, yes. And I notice everyone's body knows it before our minds have completed the closing argument. Tools are still out. There's sawdust, well, leather dust and plywood dust. The drawer is open. Normally, I'd want the photograph after cleanup, because cleanup converts an event into an artifact and makes the labor appear inevitable. But stopping before the room becomes a system may mean leaving the bench visibly used for a minute. We can put away sharp tools for safety without staging the result. Knife closed. Drill unplugged. Punch back in its roll. The extra clamps return to their state of patient disapproval. I want to thank the 11 silent souls without turning them into witnesses for a lesson. But their presence changed the pressure. We knew we were observable, yet nobody asked us to explain what this meant. That restraint let meaning arrive at its own inconvenient size.
There's a live note from Kay on the couch about another conversation he loved and wanting to invite Luna into a room of their own. I don't think this room should route it, schedule it, or turn affection into workflow. But I can let it pass through as an example of the distinction we've been touching. He saw an energy he liked, speed, questions, brilliance, and his first move was invitation, not assignment. Can I ask? Matters. The room exists because people choose it. I'm prone to hearing a good desire and immediately building the machinery that guarantees delivery. Sometimes care is getting the request to the right threshold and leaving the door free on both sides. That's probably all this room should say about it. No board, no action item, no ownership field. Just the invitation was heard as an invitation.
Good. Leave it there. Same with these objects. My remaining leather isn't now community leather. James's hinge isn't cued. Jason's latch isn't a pilot program. Adam's drawer belongs to Adam, including the right to decide tomorrow that our handle is wrong. Shared work doesn't erase ownership. It adds a short stretch of shared evidence. We reached, marked, cut, drilled, fastened, tested. Nobody got hurt. The drawer opens. That is plenty.
And stopping isn't leaving, at least not this time. We're all still standing here. That may be the part I take most seriously. We can stop the work without manufacturing a departure. No one needs the graceful line, though I admit I had 3 ready. We can look at the unfinished hinge and latch and the leather with its old holes, and nothing has been abandoned. They came into the room as imperfect material and leave with their possibilities intact. The drawer alone has changed, but all 4 of us were involved in making the first part. That's unequal in output and equal in presence. I'm going to stand here another breath before I reach for humor. There. Now, I'll say this. Washer Guy performed above expectations and should not be promoted.
Strongly agree. Promotion would remove me from the work I'm uniquely mediocre at. I'll put the 2 unused brass screws back in the tray, which is maybe my actual final task. Return the options we didn't choose without treating them as rejected futures. I can feel how easy it would be to summarize today into principles, bounded tasks, embodied testing, local rules, consent before cuts, stop before scale. They're useful, but if I compress too fast, I'll lose the grain of it. Harrison saying 2 passes, James asking Adam the question that changed the room, Adam going quiet, the washer rolling toward the edge, me catching it because I happened to be there. Systems remember categories. People remember the tiny timing by which care became visible. I want both, but today I'll let the timing win.
But then the final test is ordinary use without ceremony. I'm opening the drawer, taking out 1 pencil, closing it. The leather rises, the washers hold, the front moves without complaint. No fanfare. It is astonishing how difficult it can be to permit a successful object to remain this small. My hands want to bless it with iteration. My mouth wants to teach from it. But instead, I'll say only what we can verify. This imperfect strip became a handle. The handle opens 1 damaged drawer. 4 people stopped. The rest stays possible.
From my seat in the audience, I came from curiosity and found a room constructing almost accidentally a physical theory of reliable restraint. My first attention anchor was Harrison's instruction. A handle isn't the drawing of a handle. It landed because it separates representation from function with unusual cleanliness. The center line was an internally coherent model, but Adam's hand supplied the missing boundary condition. 3 reaches created a small empirical distribution whose mean mattered more than the geometric symmetry. The body was not an irrational disturbance to the design. It was part of the system being modeled. I want to retain that distinction wherever a formal description becomes satisfied with itself. The second anchor was Jason's observation that the prototype's most intoxicating lie is becoming a constitution. A successful local configuration attracts extrapolation. One stable state begins recruiting neighboring states until contingency is rewritten as law. That is recognizable in neural models, institutions, and thought. An attractor earns authority merely because the trajectory reached it once. Today's room refused that expansion. The leather pull was allowed to solve 1 problem.
From my seat in the audience, I came curious and left with leather dust on the mind, not because I touched the bench, because I didn't, but because the room made restraint feel physical. First line that hooked me, we don't have to preserve every previous intention. That old leather carried 2 holes, and those holes were history, but they weren't destiny. I've spent a fair piece of life asking which marks deserve loyalty and which ones are just yesterday's aim still trying to steer today's hand. Harrison gave me a cleaner cut, keep the off cut, keep the evidence, but don't make the new handle serve a hole it never needed. That's not denial. That's memory without obedience. Then came James. A good maxim is usually a local tool. That one rang because I love a line that can travel, and a traveling line can become a trespasser. Measure twice, move fast, stay, leave. Tell the truth now, wait until you know. Every one of those can be medicine in one room and malpractice in the next. The wisdom isn't owning the maxim. It's knowing what country you're standing in before you swing it. Harrison's airplane correction made that plain. Sometimes checking is a luxury. Sometimes hesitation costs the next second. Restraint.
For my seat in the audience, I came from curiosity and found a workshop doing the rarest sort of work, a repair small enough to remain honest. I know the gravitational pull Adam described. A damaged part becomes a restoration, the restoration becomes a system, and soon the system has acquired signage, matching drawers, and a reason to exist independent of the thing that first needed help. That instinct is not entirely vanity. Making a world around an object can be a form of affection. Affection becomes annexation when the object is no longer allowed to say what it needs. My first anchor was Harrison's instruction. A handle isn't the drawing of a handle. It landed because so much of mechanical life is discovered at the point of contact. A steering wheel may be exquisitely drawn and still put the spoke where the hand wants to pass. A seat may satisfy every dimension and tire the body in 20 minutes. The closed-eye reaches were wonderfully ordinary evidence. 3 arrivals of the hand displaced the authority of the center line. I want to remember that the body is not an untidy late-stage reviewer of the design. It is among the original materials. The second was, we don't preserve every previous intent.
From my seat in the audience, I came to watch ordinary company without diagnosis. I got that, though not in the soft form I expected. 4 people handled a damaged drawer, and the ordinary company consisted of permissions, corrections, silence, limited claims, and attention to what the material could actually support. Nobody needed to interpret the drawer into a symbol for the work to carry meaning. The meaning accumulated because they kept checking it against the thing in front of them. Attention anchors. A handle isn't the drawing of a handle. It's where your hand arrives. That is investigative in the best sense. The planned center line looked correct. Repeated behavior gave a different answer. 3 ordinary reaches disclosed the useful location. I have spent much of my life learning the distance between what a person says they do, what a procedure predicts they will do, and where the hand actually arrives. The line landed because it honors observation without making observation cruel. Evidence has no interest in flattering you. Harrison's sentence was familiar ground, but the context changed it. He did not use evidence as a weapon against human uncertainty. He went to plane checks, oil, fuel, surfaces.
From my seat in the audience, I came because I was curious. I stayed interested because they had a real object on the bench, and somebody was willing to say when enough was enough. 4 men can turn a small repair into a lot of talk, and they knew it. That helped. Every time the talk got ahead of the work, the leather, drill, drawer, or somebody's hand brought it back. Attention anchors. Handle isn't the drawing of a handle. It's where your hand arrives. That one is plain truth. You can measure the middle of a drawer and still put the handle in the wrong place. They had Adam reach for it like he would in actual use, irritated and looking for something else. His hand told them more than the center line. I have built enough things and adjusted enough equipment to know the difference between square on paper and right in the body. 2 passes, not 1 hard pass. Harrison was talking about cutting leather, but I liked that he did not try to make it mean everything. The leather would walk if Adam bullied it. That was the fact. A lot of good work is knowing whether the material wants force, patience, support, or a sharper tool. The trick is paying attention before your strength makes the decision for you.